Tomieka, thank you.
Oh, thank you for the invitation.
As always. Tomieka actually gets invited back to the law school for one thing or another quite often, and to my knowledge has never said no. So we appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
The students have done some reading about the gap between the demand for legal services and the private supply of legal services. And one of the things that they have learned is that there is such a thing as the legal services program. And that's, of course, where you make your living. Wondering if you could just describe for the students the kind of work you do, and talk a little bit about your clients and where they come from.
Good morning. Are you guys awake yet?
Yeah.
Georgia Legal Services handles very, very different cases. I don't have a typical day. Primarily what I do is domestic violence work. But we handle Social Security, public benefits, Medicaid, housing, family law cases, elder law cases. There's so many different areas that you can become proficient in. It really depends on which office that you work for, because we are a statewide law firm with regional offices, and every office does things just a little different. Some offices will have people work in their specialty. So like they'll have one attorney handle all of the domestic violence cases for the counties that they cover, and then one attorney will handle the public benefits and someone else will do housing. Because Macon, we are so thin, we don't have the ability to do that. So you basically handle whatever cases come out of your counties. We do represent low income and elderly clients in civil cases. No criminal work is done. Our clients come from everywhere, from the once wealthy wife who is now divorced and destitute because she was maybe in a domestic abuse situation and was not allowed to work. Was not allowed to go to school, and now she's divorced and she's having to start all over again and kind of work her way through, figure things out. To the elderly grandmother who's being evicted from her apartment because she couldn't pay a $50 repair charge that she felt she was being wrongly charged. So we see people from different walks of life. My favorite and least favorite client is the client that comes into my office with a Kroger bag full of papers, and they sit it on the table and say, I got a problem and I need you to help me figure it out. And the first time that happened to me, in my head I was thinking, are you serious right now? Like, there's 100 pieces of paper, pieces of mail in this bag. And this elderly woman didn't really know what the problem was. She just knew that, somebody keeps calling her saying she owes this bill, and she's scared they're going to take her to jail if she doesn't come up with the money, and she's on a fixed income and she doesn't know how she's going to pay it. What can you do to help me? So that's a little bit of what we do.
You could do anything. Right? You've got all this experience. You did well in school. You had the choice to practice really almost any kind of law you wanted to. Why this?
It started with that internship where I met you, the Dan Bradley Fellowship at Georgia Legal Services. I had done some other internships because when I came to law school, I thought I knew what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to prosecute crimes against children. And so I volunteered at the DA's office and quickly found out that was not for me. So after trying a couple of different things where I really thought I was supposed to be, I landed on the steps of Georgia Legal Services, and from the first day I walked into that office, I knew that was exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And it's funny because that summer, I didn't do a whole lot of legal stuff because I wasn't, in court. I would go and observe, but I did a lot of hand-holding, which was interesting. I had a tremendous amount of client contact. I ended up meeting a 92-year-old client who wanted to have a will prepared. It was the dead of summer. I go to her apartment to meet with her, and I walk in and I'm sitting down and sweat is just pouring off of me. It was blazing hot in this woman's apartment. And I said, well, do you mind if you turn on the air conditioner? She says, I don't have an air conditioner. Now, you all can imagine Macon in the summer with no air conditioning. I thought I would die. But I knew right then and there, we have to fix this. And that's the type of person I am. I'm a fixer. Olivia Pope wannabe. So I made sure that we got this woman an air conditioner. And I mean, I work for legal aid. I didn't have any money to go out and personally buy this for her, but I went over to Home Depot and said, hey, I have this client, you know, she really needs some help. She's 92 years old, she's sweltering. Long story short, we got her the air conditioning unit that she needed. And it's little things like that in addition to all the other stuff that I get to do. But knowing that the work that you do really makes a difference. How many of your friends do you think are going to be going to work and taking 2 hours out of their day to go to a client's apartment, meet with them, and then figure out how to get them an air conditioning unit? It's not a legal issue at all, but it's a human issue. And I care about people. I want to be a voice for those people who don't have a voice. And so working through legal aid has allowed me the opportunity to be that person.
But you could have made so much more money.
Mm-hmm. Never went to law school for money. I really was one of those kids that in my interview I said, I really want to help people, and I meant that. And I've always been community service oriented. That's just who I am. That's how I was raised. And I realized that the best way to help people was through this position. Definitely, if it were about money, I would have been gone year one. Because the pay was just ridiculous, you know, when you think back. But you do get great benefits that come with the life of legal aid, with student loan repayment and excellent health care. But you certainly don't go into this work to make money. That's just not what you do. If that's what you're thinking, then you really should change your track right now and do something else.
You talked a little bit about what you like about this. Indeed, I think love is not too strong a word.
Oh, no, not at all.
What do you find most challenging or frustrating about what you do?
Not being able to provide help for those people, for all of the people who need us. Right now, the Macon office has 4 attorneys covering 23 counties. So you can imagine how many people we have to say no to. And I think what frustrates me most, our private bar here in the Macon area is wonderful. And they will step in and they will help us by taking pro bono cases or reduced fee cases. But when we get out into the counties, we have some counties where we can't get one attorney to agree to take 1 case a year. And I don't think that's asking too much for you to step up and say, hey, out of an entire year, I will give Georgia Legal Services 1 case. And we screen the clients for them. We do a lot of the work. If they need the whatever documents they need, we can get that for them. We try to make it easy, but that's the most frustrating part, is having a client come in and having to say, no, we can't help you because we simply don't have the staff available.
How do you do that? I mean, you're in the moment. I mean, you're face to face with somebody who can't afford services. You are, at least at that moment, their only hope, and you have to tell them no. How do you do that?
It's heart-wrenching. It is heart-wrenching. For the most part, I try to take the punk way out, and I'll send a letter. And sometimes they'll call back, sometimes they won't, but it's easier. That's one of the things with us. A lot of our clients are not able to get to our office because they are out in the counties. They don't have transportation. They can't afford the gas to get to Macon. Some of them are an hour and a half away. So we do a lot of things by mail and by telephone. So we may get a case. We have a weekly staff meeting where we meet to discuss the cases. We look at the merits of the case and we look at our staff available to find out, you know, can we match those two? When we cannot, then we send them the letter saying, unfortunately, we can't help you, but let me give you some advice to kind of help you walk through this process so that you can do it on your own.
Okay. And that actually anticipated my next question, which was how do you decide which one, when you want to take them all?
Absolutely.
How do you decide, I'll take this one, but not that one?
A lot of it depends on, we may have a client that comes in and says, you know, they may come in on a Tuesday and they have a hearing on Thursday morning. Do we have any attorneys that are available to go with them to that hearing? That's number one. Then we look at the merits of their case. What defenses do they have? Like, there are certain housing cases that we will not take. If it's a client that comes in and they're being evicted because they didn't pay their rent, we want to look, are there any other extenuating circumstances? Nothing. I just didn't have the money to pay the rent. We really don't have a defense to that. I'll give you some advice and a list of some local agencies where you can go and try to come up with the money. But other than that, there's really not a defense that we can go into court and argue. So we don't feel like that would be an area that would be a good use of our resources. And one thing that I say we pride ourselves on is the court knows when Georgia Legal Services is involved, we have definitely looked at the merits of the case. We feel that they have a claim, or we wouldn't be there, because we simply do not have the staff to take everything that comes in the door. So we've vetted it, we've looked at whatever the law is. It's probably an area that we are specialized in, and we're ready to argue that point. So that's one thing that the court can come to depend on. If they see us, they know, they must think that they have something.
It's interesting that you all have a reputation with the courts.
Absolutely. I love when a judge will tell me from the bench, I love when Georgia Legal Services is on the other side. That makes me feel so good, because we have set a reputation that they know we're going to be prepared, we are on time, and let me just tell you, your reputation follows you. When I first started practicing, I used to practice in a circuit, and it was about an hour and 15 minutes from my house. I never wanted to be late, never wanted the court to have to wait on me. So I would always make sure that I got to court early. 30 minutes would probably be good, but I was always an hour early. Always, never failed, because I always thought the day that I decide to leave a little later, there's going to be traffic on 75, I'm going to be caught, and the judge is going to be looking at me crazy, and I don't want to be that chick. So I always got there really early, and one day the judge pulled me to the side. He said, "Why do you get to court so early?" And I said, "Well, Your Honor, I don't ever want to be the reason that your courtroom is being held up." And I could tell by the look on his face, he was very impressed by that. And every time thereafter, he would say things like, "I appreciate you for being here. I'm glad that you're in this courtroom. I'm glad that you're on this case." But if you get that reputation for being the late person, or the dishonest person, or the person that cuts corners, they remember that. That same judge, this is before the law changed, I was handling a domestic violence case, and there was a section that we had to apply child support. And at the time, we had guidelines, and you have to go in, you'd look at the husband's income, and whatever the child support would be set, like 17 to 21% of his income. You'd go and you'd figure it out, and you'd fill it in. The judge would approve it, sign off on it, and you'd be done. Well, this particular day, the judge signed my protective order for my client, but we didn't have an amount listed for child support because we didn't know the husband's income at that time. And so I said, "Well, Your Honor, that we need to fill in the child support." And he says, "Oh, Miss Daniel, you just fill it in." And I said, "Okay, well, I'll go fill it in, and then I'll bring it back to you so you can review it and then sign off on it." And he says, "No, give it to me now, I'll sign it, just put something in there." And I looked at him like, is he crazy? You trust me to just put something in there? But again, my reputation set that tone for him to know she's honest, she's trustworthy, and she's not going to try to pull anything over on this court.
Trust is a wonderful thing.
Wonderful thing. Wonderful thing.
That's a good side, I think, to being a Georgia Legal Services lawyer, because you all do have reputations, both personally and as an office. Wondering if other lawyers, at least maybe the first time they deal with you, treat you any differently because they know you're a legal services lawyer. Do they?
Not the way they used to. When I first started in 2002, it was amazing to me the looks that some of my classmates and some of the other attorneys would give me, like, "You poor thing, you're with legal aid." And it kind of bothered me at first, but I continued to do the best job that I could do because I knew why I was there. I knew what my purpose was for being there. But I think our reputation has given us so much respect with the private bar, because private attorneys, they're kind of amazed at, "Gosh, I can't believe you do the work that you do for the pay that you get." But then they see the rewarding side as well. And so they understand that it's not a situation where we don't have a choice of where we could go. We choose to do this on purpose. And I think they kind of are like, "Wow, that's really amazing." And I see so much of the tide changing, starting with law schools, that there's so much more of an emphasis now on people wanting to go into public interest work. Whereas when I graduated, it just wasn't the in thing. Everybody was going to Austin and Byrd, and that was where they wanted to be. And that's fine. If that's what you want to do, more power to you. But now the tide is changing, and it's sexy again to be with legal aid.
There was a time in your career, and I'm trying to remember how long ago it was, that you had a special project that you worked on. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that experience.
Sure. That was 2007 to 2009. I worked on this manufactured housing project, and I'm smiling because I want to laugh because I still can't believe that I did this. But I was at a time in my career where I needed to stop doing domestic violence work or I was going to go crazy. I was completely burned out with it. I loved all the other stuff that I was doing, but I was doing so much domestic violence work because I had basically created a niche for myself that's where I was being pushed, and I had had enough. I was like, if I don't do something different, I'm leaving Georgia Legal Services, period. And so they created this manufactured housing project, and I covered counties, I guess, from Tifton south, the entire south half of Georgia. I was one attorney, no staff, it was just me. And of course my clients couldn't get to Macon, so I was on the road constantly. One day I'd be in Brunswick, one day I'd be in Valdosta. And I was assisting clients that had issues with mobile homes, whether it was repair issues, eviction issues, mold, anything you could think of that was related to a manufactured house, I did it. And I will say it was an interesting 2 years. I was glad when the project ended, and if the opportunity presented itself, I would never do it again. But it was what I needed at the time. I needed a break, and it helped me go back and appreciate the work that I was doing. I was like, give me a domestic violence case, please. Get me out of these mobile homes. Just the things that I saw just make my skin crawl still.
You saw some things that you had never seen before.
Things I had never seen before. The level of poverty that some people were living in. I've never seen bugs so big. I've never seen houses so dirty. Like, my eyes were open to so many things that I probably didn't want to see and hope I never see again. But it was a reality for a lot of people. And in that space, I couldn't judge them because that was the best that they could do with what they had. And that's all they had. So I couldn't, even though inside I'm screaming, please don't let anything touch me, please don't let anything touch me, don't let that bug crawl across my foot. But I had to listen and figure out what their legal issue was and what I could do to try and help them. But yeah, I was pretty grossed out a couple of times.
For this, I went to law school.
Yeah, I went to law school for, I used to say that pretty frequently. I cannot believe I went to law school for this.
Let's talk about law school for a minute. One of the things I like to ask the folks that visit with us, I don't always remember to do it, but I like to ask is, what did law school do to prepare you, and what maybe did it not do to prepare you once you left this building?
I do not feel that I was adequately prepared to deal with clients when I left this building. Walking into a Georgia Legal Services or any legal aid program, when you get there day one, you're going to have files waiting for you. You're going to have clients already. And me sitting down for the first time with my first client and, being given a couple of facts and saying, well, go figure out what the issue is, and this person has court on Friday and it's Monday. Intimidating, just a little bit, but it's a part of the process. So that was one of the things that I kind of wish that we had more of a focus on when I was in law school. I think it prepared me for networking, because some of the connections that I've made at this law school, we are still in contact with each other. Even if we weren't friends inside this building, I knew their reputation. So if I have a client that has a special issue, a personal injury case, and I need to send them to someone who I know is going to take care of them and represent them well, I can call on one of my classmates. Again, we may not have been friends, but I know that that person has a good reputation for doing good work, and so I can feel comfortable sending my client there. And then the connections with the faculty. Never underestimate your relationships that you make here, because they follow you. They have the potential to put you in places that you never thought you'd be. I've been asked to do so many things by the faculty and staff here at the law school. And I wasn't Miss Law School. I wasn't top of the class. I wasn't, one of those, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get to class. My first year of law school, I was miserable. Hated law school with a passion. Wanted to give up and never come back. I'm just being honest, because that's one of the things about me. I don't like when attorneys come in and they give you these grand stories about how perfect everything was, and it wasn't always perfect. And I'm getting off topic for just a second, but I have to share this story. we had a group of students when I was in law school my third year, and we brought in a very well-known private attorney, and that attorney came in and basically said, you all need to be who you are right now, and if you want to dye your hair purple, then you dye your hair purple, and if you want to wear Jesus sandals to court, then you do that. And to me, that person was being just ridiculous. It didn't make any sense. In Macon, Georgia, if you think that it's okay for you to dye your hair purple and that someone is going to hire you at their law firm, you are sorely mistaken. And so after she left, I closed the door and I politely said, forget everything that you just heard, because that's a bunch of crap. If you want to get a job here, there are certain things that you're going to have to do. And dyeing your hair purple is not one of them. So I've had people come up to me afterwards. There was a young lady in the class and her hair was like Kool-Aid red. And she came up to me afterwards and she said, I went home and I dyed my hair that next day. And that next week I got an interview. And I got the job, and I had been interviewing with the Kool-Aid red hair, and she kept getting turned down. And my thing is, you have to know where you are. She was from California. And I said, that might work in Cali, but it doesn't work in Macon, Georgia. So you kind of have to figure out where you are and work within that system. And then once you get on your own, then you can do all those things if that's what you choose to do, but you have to pay your dues first.
From the first part of that answer, I assume you can assure them that being a lawyer is more fun than being a law student.
Oh my goodness. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, 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 yes. Just remember, this too shall pass. Again, I used to see all these folks come in here and just talk with us as if law school was the best thing that ever happened to them. And I was a great student prior to law school, like all of you were. Top of my class. I did very well, but I got here and I just felt like a fish out of water. This was so new to me. And I didn't enjoy my first year. I mean, it got much better second and third year, and I really had a great time. But that first year, I was like, yeah, I'm not supposed to be here. This is ridiculous. I'm going to drop out tomorrow, because this is not how anyone is supposed to be, this miserable. But the practice of law is so completely different from law school. Take advantage of this now. I have an intern in my office, and I think she was like, oh, I don't have any classes on Tuesdays. I was like, wow, how does that happen? Enjoy those times, because I look back now and I wish there were days when I had a full day during the week, when I had no responsibilities, that I had to be somewhere. But yeah, it's totally different, so just hang in there.
I'm going to stay with law school. Just one more question.
If you insist.
Is there one professor that you think back on, remember? I actually know the answer to this question. That's why I'm asking it. If you could talk a little bit about the one professor that made the biggest difference to you during your time.
The first, and I have two that are very, 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 very instrumental in my life. One has passed away, Professor Kozik. I had him my first year, and he terrified me. He was part of the reason why I thought I wasn't supposed to be in law school and I wanted to leave in the beginning, because he was so strict and he was so firm, and he just brought the fear of God into me. And I'd see him and I'd start shaking. Like, he was tough. But there was a method to his madness. And one thing that we didn't understand when we were going through his case, like, you'd say something and you might say, well, Professor Kozik, I think, and he'd stop you and say, I don't care what you think. I'm not paying you to think. What does the law say? And the first time it happened, you're like, oh my gosh. But he had a reason. Or you might say, well, he said da-da-da-da. Who is he? Miss Daniel, who is he? What are you talking about? We don't know what you're talking about. And I see the difference now, because when I'm in court, and I'm up against other attorneys, I can tell those people that are in my age range that had Professor Kozik and those who didn't have Professor Kozik. It shows in your presentation, because you don't spend a lot of time with, well, he and she and they. You're very direct. You get to the point, you answer the question, and then you move on. So I appreciate him for that. My other greatest asset here at this law school was Professor Baldwin. I adopted him like my father. And when I could not feel comfortable talking to anybody else, or I was so scared and I was just so intimidated, he would take me to the side and say, you just need to breathe. You need to calm down. You are here because you're supposed to be here. Yes, you are good enough. And just having somebody kind of slap you around a little bit, he didn't hit me, but you know what I mean. The verbal slapping of get it together, like get your head in the game, study, do what you're supposed to do, and you'll be just fine. And it's funny because I just sent him a text on my way here asking him if he was going to be here. That's what I talk about, those relationships. It's been all these years. I graduated in 2002, and I still speak with him regularly, and I appreciate the lessons that I learned from listening to him and following the advice that he's given me throughout the years.
Being a law student is tough. Being a brand new lawyer, I think in some ways is even tougher. And trying to make that transition from novice to expert. And nobody makes that transition without help, without mentors, without somebody who cares about you to invest in your development. Could you talk a little bit about the people who were mentors to you and what they did to help you make that transition?
Sure. I had a tremendous mentor. He passed away 2 years ago, and he also was like a father to me. He was a Mercer graduate, and he struggled with law school. He was one of those that didn't think that it was all flowery, and he actually worked full-time at the base and had a family when he went through law school. It amazes me to this day. I don't know how anybody could do that, but that's what he did. And he had to teach me that I had to learn how to believe in myself and believe in my own abilities, and not be intimidated so easily by other folks. One of the biggest mistakes that you can make coming out of law school is trying to make people think that you know everything. Because we know you don't know anything. You're not supposed to know everything when you come out of law school. There's going to be a ton that you don't know. But the quickest way to turn seasoned lawyers off is for you to come in and act like you know everything, because then no one's going to want to help you. Because if I'm trying to give you some advice and your response is, oh yeah, I know that, or I've done that, or okay, well, you figure it out then. And so when you come to a point where you've humbled yourself and you really do need help, I may be less inclined to listen, because when I tried to talk to you, it was, oh yeah, I got this. I don't need to talk to you. I'm just a legal aid lawyer. I'm just kidding. But you do. Mentors are so important. Find someone who does the type of work that you want to do. Ask them out to lunch. People say that all the time, and I used to say, I'm not going to go ask a complete stranger out to lunch. Really. If you don't want to do the lunch thing, ask them, can I just come and sit and talk with you in your office for a few minutes? Don't try to take an hour, because they're billing. They don't have time to give you an hour. But they can give you 15 minutes, they can give you 20 minutes and kind of lead you in the right direction. And you cultivate that relationship. We get busy with our clients, with our lives, with our community work. So sometimes we forget. So if you reach out to someone and they don't follow up with you, it's okay for you to reach out to them again and say, you know, I know you're really busy. I just wanted to touch base with you again. And that might be the trigger to say, that's right, I was supposed to call her back, or I was supposed to call him back. Cultivate those relationships over and over again. Make sure you have a relationship with someone in this building, because you never know what job opportunities you may get through this. I got my job through the law school. Every job that I've had from law school on, while I was in law school, I should say, and once I graduated, was because of the relationship that I had with the Career Services Office. Don't underestimate that. They knew what I liked. They knew the type of person that I was. They knew where I wanted to go. So as opportunities presented themselves, they'd say, hey, Tomieka, we have something that I think you might be interested in. And, you know, generally it worked out. And everything that I interviewed for when I was in law school, I got every position. Because I wasn't one of those that just applied to 50 different places because I wanted to see what popped up. I was very strategic in what I applied for. If I didn't want to do it, I wasn't going to put in an application, because I didn't need to work that bad. Let me figure out what it is I want to do, or what I think I want to do. Try it out for a while. Then that way, if it doesn't fit, at least you can say, I tried that, now I'm moving on to something else.
Can I ask you something I don't think I've ever asked you,
Sure.
and I didn't warn you of?
Sure.
Dean Floyd was with us a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about some research that was done with law students. And that one of the things that law students had, this fear that they had, was that they could never, as a lawyer, ever make a mistake. That you're a total failure if you ever make a mistake. Have you ever made a mistake?
Absolutely.
Could you talk a little bit about that and how you deal with it?
Sure.
As a lawyer?
This takes me back. This past week I've spoken at 3 different high schools on the issues of teen dating violence. I do that all over the state. And I have the students always ask me, you know, how many cases have you lost? Have you ever lost any cases? And you can't remember. I don't remember the number of cases that I've won, but I could count how many cases I've lost. And you remember the losses, because that's what makes you better. I remember my very first custody case I lost, and I was up against a seasoned attorney. I mean, she was amazing. And we tried to negotiate the case, or at least I tried to negotiate the case because I wanted to settle it. I didn't want to have a trial against this big-time lawyer. But that didn't work out. And so during the trial, some information came out about my client that I didn't know. And I look back now and I say, you know, had I asked the right questions? Because let me just tell you this. My boss at the time, I said, my client lied to me. I can't believe she didn't tell me blah, 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 blah. And he looked at me very sternly and said, your client didn't lie to you. You just didn't ask the right questions. And I was furious with him. I just wanted to scratch his eyes out. I was so mad because clearly it wasn't my fault. She didn't tell me what she needed to tell me so that I could prevent certain information from coming out the way that it came out. But I had to do some soul searching, and then I realized, wow, he's right. I could have asked a few more questions. I could have gone to see the house rather than take her word for it. So that helped me realize that there's always more that you can do. So when you make a mistake, you definitely learn from it. And you hope that you don't make mistakes, but it's inevitable. Your superiors know that you're going to make mistakes. That's why we have malpractice insurance. It's there for a reason, because they know at some point someone's going to miss a filing deadline, someone's going to miss court. You know, just things happen, and it's not the end of the world. And I think back, and I laugh at myself now, because I'll never forget when I was in law school, I had prepared for this exam, and I studied so hard, and I was ready to go, and I walk into class, and I hear my classmates talking, and they're talking about contracts. And I'm like, why are they talking about contracts? And we're getting ready to do the property exam. They are throwing me off. And they're going, and they're going, and they're going. And then it hits me. I studied for the wrong exam. Yeah, imagine as I'm sitting there and I'm panicked and I'm like about to throw up and I'm like, I cannot believe this is happening to me. Again, I'm being transparent with you. I freaked out. I walked out of the classroom. I went straight to Dean Donovan's office and I was like, I can't believe and I'm like about to start hyperventilating, and she's like, just take a deep breath, calm down, what happened? Long story short, I was able to take the exam. And I didn't have to sit for that exam that I was not prepared for. But things happen. Now, I'm not saying go try this, because I don't know if that'll work again. It worked for me, and I got through that. But you guys have to not take yourself so seriously. Definitely do the very best that you can to be prepared. And once you've done your best, rest in knowing that you've given it your all. Now, if you've done a half job and you really haven't prepared and you just kind of walked into court and said, I'll wing it, and then you messed up, then you got a problem, because you need to look at the disservice that you just did your client. But I can sleep at night when I look at my clients and I know that I did everything that I possibly could do on their case, and then it's out of my hands. Whatever happens, happens.
Have you ever encountered a lawyer who made a mistake and then tried to hide it?
That's probably the worst thing that you can do, because they're going to find out. We had someone in our office before I became a staff attorney that basically tried to hide the fact that they missed a deadline, a filing deadline. And that can be very problematic. You need to be upfront, because there are things that we can do to fix it. Most of the time, most mistakes are fixable. But we have to know about them so that we can address them early on, do what needs to be done, basically throw yourself on the mercy of the court and work through whatever, not punishment, but work through whatever we need to do to fix that situation. But if you hide it, you try to bury it, and it comes out later, then you're probably looking at losing your job because you didn't do what you should have done.
The students this week are going to be talking about various ways of dealing with this gap between the demand for services and the supply of them. Of course, the kind of people like you and the kind of work you do is one thing. Pro bono representation is another. Some states are now going to licensing people who are not quite lawyers, but more than, have some legal training. There are a lot of ways to try to deal with this. Assistance for pro se representation and so on. You're enmeshed in this world, if you have been for a long time. If you could decide how this gap would be filled, what would you do as a profession?
I'm torn every year when I get asked this question, because one part of me wants to say that it should be required that every attorney should do a certain number of pro bono cases per year, period. But then the other side of me sees those attorneys who are working with clients, working with cases that they really don't want to be bothered with, and they don't give it their all. And you almost want to say, I'd rather that person have no attorney than an attorney that could care less and is not going to do really what they could possibly do for them. So some way to meet in the middle. Unfortunately, we have to give incentives for people to do things sometimes. Things that intrinsically I feel we're supposed to do. Everybody doesn't feel that way, and that's okay. So I wish we could figure out a way to offer some type of incentive for private attorneys to take it. And with Georgia Legal Services, we give them a CLE voucher so that they can go and take a CLE. You have to have a certain number of CLE credits every year, so we help them towards that. But whatever it would be, whether it's, you do a certain number of cases and we reduce your bar dues for the year, I don't know what it could be, but some incentive to make the attorneys feel like it's going to be worth their while for them to take this number of cases. And then that's less clients that we have that are unrepresented. Because the reality of it is, all of these clients that are unrepresented are basically clogging up the court system. We are not able to expeditiously handle cases because we have clients who don't know how to fill out the paperwork. They don't know how to get their case on the calendar. They just don't know the routine, and so the court and the judge and his clerk spends a lot of time trying to get those folks up to speed, where we could be moving cases through more quickly if we had an attorney to just basically, even if it was just drafting the paperwork, and then the client got into court on an uncontested divorce case, for example. If we had someone to properly draft the paperwork for them, the court can take it from there. But where we get bottlenecked is folks come in with their own paperwork and they don't know how to do this. You're going to come out of law school not knowing how to do it. It's something that you're going to have to learn. So if you, after 3 years of training, still can't figure out how to do it, how in the world do we expect these folks to figure it out on their own? We need to do something to provide incentives to attorneys to get in there, do, even if it's just limited representation, so that we can help move along the cases.
Has it been your experience that there's a difference in the reaction between a lawyer who has never done any pro bono and someone who has done some? When you go back to them, once they've had that experience, is the reaction different?
It is. Once a private attorney gets involved and they get that one case and they see, gosh, it really wasn't that bad. Because I think oftentimes you have fear of the unknown. People think, well, legal aid, they represent low-income clients. This is going to be a needy client that's going to, take up a lot of my time and a lot of my energy, and I could be making money rather than dealing with this person that needs hand-holding. But my clients are no different than the clients that can afford to pay. They have the same types of issues. And once the private attorneys get in there and get involved with the case, they get a good result, they realize, wow, it really isn't that bad. And generally they will come back. We have repeat offenders in our program, and they will take multiple cases. And the Macon bar is excellent about that. We can call on them for just about anything, and we'll have somebody that would be willing to step up.
That thinking is one of the reasons why at least one state has now said law students must do pro bono, so that we're going to make them have that experience, so that when they get out, they're going to be more receptive. What do you think of that?
I love it. We have a captive audience. You can make law students do just about anything. I love it. And again, because it's a learning experience for you, you can try something that you probably would have never considered, and you really might like it. What's the worst that could happen? Well, you find out you were confirmed that you don't want to do public interest work. Okay, fine. Now you've realized that and you move on. But the best thing that could happen is, you know what? That's not so bad. I could really see myself doing that. Maybe not full time. Maybe that's not you. You have bills. You want to go. You want to make the money. That's fine. But once you get there, you say, I'll take X number of pro bono cases because I remember my experience working with that clinic in law school, working with those clients, and that was a really rewarding experience. So this is something that I think I should do.
You've already done some of this, but I always make sure to ask folks to come see us if there's anything that they want to share. You said you have a captive audience. Well, you darn sure have one this morning. anything that you want to share with them, advice you want to give them, maybe something that you wish somebody had said to you when you were a first-year law student? It's a free shot. What?
Gosh, there's so much. Don't take yourselves too seriously. Don't go through law school feeling like you're on an island. I regret that I did not get involved in study groups until I studied for the bar. Because when I was an undergrad, I didn't need study groups. I didn't go to the library. I mean, I got it. You know, it came pretty easy. I got it. I didn't put all that extra time in. And I saw my classmates once we got to law school with the study group thing, and I was like, yeah, that's not really for me. That seems more like social hour. But it made the difference for me in studying for the bar. I was with a group of people, most of whom we all liked each other. Most. We had one of my friends is on law review, and he was just a tyrant. Like he wanted to be the boss, and he knew everything, and he was super smart, and he got on our nerves. But he pushed us, and that was what we needed, because, you know, I was that law student that while studying for the bar, which was the end of July, I thought I was going to go to the Essence Festival July 4th weekend while I was studying for the bar, because that's just what I wanted to do. It's a big music festival, and I just thought that I should take 3 days off and go. But I didn't go, by the way, didn't go. My study group was like, yeah, you're crazy, you're not going anywhere. But we surrounded ourselves with people that were going to push us to be our best, and people who didn't think like us, because they could see a side of an argument that I couldn't see, and talking it out with them, you know, made it clear. And I was sitting there, I was like, gosh, why didn't I do this 3 years ago? My experience might have been totally different had I given it a try and not tried to think that I could handle everything on my own. Connections make them here. They will carry you throughout your career. Ask questions. Get to know your professors. Get to know the community wherever you want to work. Just get to know people. Treat people right, from when you go into the courthouse and you have to file something at the clerk's office. You better take care of those ladies in the clerk's office, because they can make your life a living hell. You better take care of the janitors that are there. You know, I hate to see new lawyers coming in and they're just so haughty and they just have this nasty attitude on how they treat people. But that same lady that's sweeping up the floor also cleans the judge's office, and the judge talks to her. And she has an audience as well. It's just amazing, especially when you're in a small community. It is amazing the information that gets around and the way that it gets around. So they can either say something really good about that nice young man that held that door for me and told me to have a nice day, or that ugly young man that, you know, snapped at me and told me to get out of his way because he didn't have time to deal with somebody sweeping the floor. You know, you don't think about things like that, but they will follow you. I promise you. Especially if you're working in Macon, this community is super small, and once you get a bad reputation, you're pretty much done. You don't come back from that, so you want to start off on good, solid footing. Any of you have questions?
Well, that's where I was going next.
You know, I just like to take over Professor Lockett.
Well, that's okay.
Anybody?
Let me open it up to the class. What questions do you have for Tomieka? Yes, ma'am.
Did you find that doing legal aid work, you develop a different kind of relationship with your clients than you think you would in private practice?
Absolutely.
How so?
It's so much more personal. I have clients that I've represented years ago that will call me just to see how my daughter is doing. I have a 5-year-old daughter. Our clients may not have a lot of money, but they care about us because we cared about them. So we have a paralegal who loves ham, and all of his clients knows that he likes ham. And so he won this case, this Social Security case, and our client got a lump sum, couple $1,000, and she went and she bought him a ham, and she brought that ham to him, and that ham made his day. I still think I have the best gift out of any of our clients. I had an elderly client that I represented in doing a will, and she brought over some Tiffany crystal votive. Yeah, exactly. I said the same thing. Tiffany, the little blue box. I was very impressed, you know. But for her, that was a big deal. For me, it was a big deal too. So we get those relationships. My clients will bring in a plant as a thank you gift, or they'll bake us a cake as a thank you gift. So it's a lot more personal. And When you're a legal aid lawyer and you represent a client, that representation does not end. I am forever their lawyer. It doesn't matter where they see me, what's going on, when they see me in public. Oh yeah, that's my lawyer, that's Miss Daniel. And I might have represented them 10 years ago. But we have that relationship, and I care about my clients. I care about what happens to them. So it's not, if you come to me for a housing case, I'm dealing with your housing issue and then I'm done with you. You know, I want to know, well, is there anything else that we can help you with? What other needs are going on with your family? You need an air conditioner? Just kidding. What else? Don't be shy.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
On average, how often do you actually go to trial?
It really depends. Like here in Bibb County, we know every Friday we have domestic violence cases. So the general rule of thumb is every Friday someone in our office will be in court in Bibb County. But the way our office is broken down, we each have different counties that we're responsible for. Out in the rural counties, they generally only have court once a month. So depending on, you know, if you get any cases from that, clients from that county, you may be there once a month. You may be here in Bibb County once a week. But Houston County is a totally different bird. I cover Houston County. I could be in court 3 days in 1 week with 3 different judges doing domestic violence cases because they all set their own schedule. So that can be problematic sometimes. And so that's why we have scheduling issues come up from time to time because we have to have somebody in all of these counties where we're needed. So on average, I'd say probably 3-4 times a month. What else?
Emotionally, how do you handle seeing domestic after domestic after domestic? I know that can be very trying on, you know, one's emotional being. So how do you deal with that aspect of it?
I have finally learned to leave the job at the office. I'm very involved in the community with my sorority, with my church, with Boys and Girls Club. So I do a lot of other things. I pray. I have a religious background that's where I have to go to when things get so bad for me that I can't deal with it because you will see some things. It gets frustrating when I have a client that has been abused and I'm working with them to leave that relationship and then they call me and say they're going back. I can't judge because I don't know what's going on. Statistics show that a woman will be abused 7 times before she finally decides to break away from that relationship. So I have to remind myself that she's going through her cycle. She hasn't hit that 7th time yet. But I still have to be supportive. I still have to be there to support her and her decisions and say, if you decide that you want to leave again, I'll be here for you. Give me a call. So you do have to do things to take care of you, whether it's exercise. Shopping is another thing. And I don't mind sharing this because, again, I'm very transparent. If I'm having a really bad day and I just need a break, I will go to the mall. I'll go to the shops at River Crossing, and I really just need to de-stress. Just leave me alone for about an hour and a half, some 2 hours. But, you know, I do what I need to do to take care of me, but I also make sure that my work is done because I'm an early morning person. I'll get to the office early and do what I need to do. Now, don't look for me after 5 o'clock. Because that's not me. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, so I start my day really early. Around about 4, I'm ready to call it a day. I'm tired, and I'm ready to get home to my daughter and my husband and start my second job. But it just depends on how you work, because some people, it may take them 8 hours to get something done or get something accomplished, and I can get it done in 4. If I'm really, unbothered at that time and I can cut everything off and really focus on what I need to do. And so I have the best supervisor in the world that he gives me the authority to be able to do what I need to do. My work is done. If I need to go to the mall for an hour and de-stress, then that's what I do. Don't try that at Austin and Bird.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you balance being a mom and also being an attorney? 'Cause I know they say a lot of times it's hard for women in the law field to balance that. How do you work through those troubles?
I'll say it's hard for parents because I have some attorney friends, males that are single parents. It is difficult. I will not lie to you. And it depends on what area of practice you're going into, if you're in private practice or if you work for a firm. I chose legal services because I knew eventually I wanted to have a family. And so I have the ability to say, hey, I don't have court this day. It's my daughter's field day. She's in kindergarten. I'm going to go to field day because this is new for me. You know, I've never been to field day. I'm so excited, just like she is. I got to get a t-shirt and everything. But I'm able to do that because of the atmosphere of legal aid work. They understand that we have families. When my daughter's sick, if I need to stay at home and I don't have court, even, let's just say if I have a hearing on Friday and, you know, my daughter gets sick on Wednesday and it's not looking so good, we are able to help cover for each other, and vice versa. I will cover for another attorney. When we had the snowpocalypse last year and everything was shut down, the schools were closed for like 4 days. You know, I didn't have anywhere to take my daughter, so guess what? I was at home with my daughter, and it was okay. But it is hard. There are going to be some juggling acts. My daughter, bless her heart, she's very vocal, and I've trained her to be vocal, but sometimes she's too vocal because she says, Mommy, it's not fair that all the other kids' moms come and have lunch with them, and you have not been to the school to have lunch with me once. Well, I live in Warner Robins. My office is downtown Macon. My daughter has lunch from 11:35 to 12 o'clock. Seriously? Who has time? I cannot do that. It just does. It never works out that way. And so there will be some times that you have to disappoint them because I cannot get there for a 30-minute lunch and then come back here. There's just too much back and forth. But you figure it out. You figure it out. I have a great support system. My husband is very helpful. My mom is a dream, and you know she does a lot of pickups in the afternoons when I'm still at work at 5 o'clock. Like, I can't believe I'm still here and it's 5 o'clock. But you have to get a good support system. But it is definitely doable. You can be that super mom.
What ways can law students get involved during the semesters to get a taste of pro bono work at Georgia Legal Services?
You can volunteer, whether it's just Georgia Legal Services or the Public Defender's Office or the DA's office. You can try and do a practicum and get some classroom credit for it so that you don't feel like you're wasting your time if you're not really sure this is what you really want to do. But I will tell you that we only have 4 attorneys, so you can imagine we can only have 3 or 4 interns at any one time. And we always get a lot of interest, and that's exciting, and that's why I tell you to look at other areas, and don't just limit yourself to Macon. If you don't mind traveling, the DA in Houston County is great, and they love having interns. The Public Defender's Office down there. There are so many other places that you can go. If you're in the Atlanta area, Atlanta Legal Aid is always looking for interns. We have a Georgia Legal Services office in downtown Atlanta. They don't cover any of the metro counties, though. All of their counties are outer line, but the physical office is located in downtown. So there are some options available for you. You and then you.
Yeah, do you ever find that clients are reluctant for you to represent them because you are a woman?
That has happened because I was a woman and because I was black. When I speak on the phone, I'm Miss Daniel. And for whatever reason, people may not recognize what my ethnicity is, and they may sometimes say things on the phone that they would not say if they knew that I was black. Or sometimes they'll, pop up in court. Now, this happens quite frequently. I'll get a case on a Wednesday. The hearing is on Friday. I don't have time to go and meet with my client face to face, so they don't know what I look like. I don't know what they look like. And I walk up, and sometimes the look on their face is like, okay, that's not what I expected. Generally, I'm going to treat you the same because that's what I do and that's who I am. And I have never had anyone say to my face at the end that they were disappointed with me. I've had just the opposite. Gosh, you weren't what I thought you would be. And I always want to just say, well, what did you think I would be? Just could you please share that with me? But I'm too afraid of the answer because I'm looking through the world with rose-colored glasses, and I don't think I really want to know the answer. But your representation of that person, how you handle their case, will change their thinking a lot of times. Sometimes it won't. I'm sure I have some clients that walk away and, they're still disgusted. But even beyond race and gender, I've had some that, well, are you a real lawyer? You're a legal aid. We don't have to pay you anything. Are you a real lawyer? And then I just look at them and say, no, I'm just practicing. They don't usually get it. But yeah, it comes with the territory, and you deal with it, and you just continue to show excellence in everything that you do.
I'm just curious about your first trial and how the experience was as far as prepping for it, and how did you feel as the trial was going forward?
Oh, I was so nervous. It was so nerve-wracking because you're gonna feel like you don't know what you're doing. You're gonna feel like you're not prepared. You're gonna feel like you don't know everything that you need, and you won't know everything that you need to know. But sometimes my memory is really bad, so I'm one of those that I had to write out all of my questions because I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget anything. And so I just made sure that I had everything written down. I hit all my highlights, what I needed. And as you're going through the trial, sometimes it's an out-of-body experience. I just had a case right before Christmas. I had an 8-hour hearing, administrative hearing in downtown Atlanta when I wanted to be Christmas shopping. But I was in a hearing for an education case. And as the trial was going on, I was just like, I would rather be anywhere than here right now. Like, this is taking forever, but it's a process. And that's not the norm. That's the first time I've ever had an 8-hour hearing in 12 and a half years of practice. But you just go through the motions. You create your trial notebook. You have everything. You have your law here. You have your facts. You have your arguments. You have everything together, and you just have to know it cold. You go and you prepare. As long as you prepare, you'll be fine. And the judges know when you're a new attorney. They work with you. Nobody's trying to, stab you and hang you to a stake. They're going to work with you. Most of the time, opposing counsel is going to be understanding as well.
We have time for one more.
I was just going to ask, why is it a lack of resources or a lack of lawyers wanting to do legal aid work? Why do you guys only have 4?
Lack of resources. We get so many resumes from top-notch schools, top-notch students who want to come and work for us, but we cannot get enough funding to do the work that we need. Consistently, our budgets are cut, and they're not being replaced. When I interned with Georgia Legal Services, there were 10 attorneys in the office, and we have consistently had 4 for about, I'd say probably the last 6 or 7 years.
You might mention briefly where the money comes from.
We have certain grant monies that helps us, but we also get money from the federal government. And so it just kind of depends on the tide of the legislature as far as, some years we do really well and some years it's pretty lean for us. But one of the unfortunate things about our practice is we are heavily grant driven. So we have a huge grant to do domestic violence work. We do a lot of domestic violence work. We have a grant to do elder law work. We do a lot of elder law work. But if there are cases that fall in the middle and they don't have a grant tied to them, not to say that we won't do them, but we can't do as much of that work because we're not funded to do that work. And so it just makes it a little harder.
I could do this all day, but it's 9:30, and so I would say
I'll
thank
answer
you.
your question if you come up and talk to me afterwards. I don't want to leave anybody.
Thank you.